So here we are, we're in our Dan Patch session, and we're here to just learn a little bit about what is the Dan Patch program. And it is one of the award programs that's with the 4-H Horse Project here in Minnesota. So as we get going, just a little bit about me. My name is Cindy Goldaddy, and I'm just a 4-H volunteer. On the left, I am dressed up for our County Leaders Council. I'm the president of that, and so I was dressed up as a Starbucks drink. And then in the middle, I'm the horse bowl and hippology coach for our county. And so everyone had gotten medals and they're all fighting on them, gold medals in Olympics. And then on the bottom, I run the food booth in the summer at the fair when there is a fair and when there is a food booth. So missing that last year. So what we want to do is back up a little bit to figure out what is this program and where has it been? And then with COVID, where was it? And how do we participate in it? So we'll back up and then we'll start moving forward. And in a few minutes, you'll need your piece of paper and I'll tell you what to do with it. And then we'll start filling that in. All right.
How do you apply for it?
Right, that's what we're going to cover. It's got an application process. So we're going to look at that today. That's a great question. It's my favorite way to teach. When people ask the question, that's the next thing I was going to do. So here we go. Go back to our screen share. So first of all, the big question is, so if we are applying for a Dan Patch Award, who's Dan Patch?
A standard-bred racehorse.
Right, and what was that racehorse known for? Go ahead,
His
Dylan.
height.
Oh, Nevaeh, what?
His height.
You think he was known for his height? Dylan, what did you think?
How good he was at racing.
Okay, how good he was at racing. And just so you all know, when I have the screen share on, I can only see 4 of you at once. So if you're not in the 4 that I'm seeing, just go off mute and speak up. So I'm going to show you
His speed.
his speed. He was the world's champion harness horse, and he ran the record mile in 1 minute 55 seconds at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds in 1906. Think of how long ago that was, way over 100 years ago now. And the 4-H Project has done awards about Dan Patch ever since 1966, and that's even before I was born. That's a long time. That's 55 years this year that there's been a Dan Patch Award. So if you're applying for this award, you will definitely want to know, what is this award? Who is Dan Patch? This is really important for especially the older youth to know when you're going into interviews, and they may ask you, well, why did you apply for this? What is this award? So if you win this award, just think of all of the people even at Winter Roundup here. If you win this award, one of the things you get is a little name plaque that goes on this gigantic Dan Patch plaque. And this hangs in the Coliseum at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. And so like when Amber Lee was talking about goals, this might be a goal you have to have your name somewhere in the Coliseum. And this is one place you could end up having your name. So the first part of our activity, we're going to use this piece of paper all the way until the end of our time together. But the first thing that you're going to do is take your paper and fold it into 3 parts, like you were going to put it in an envelope and mail it to somebody. So fold it into thirds. So one side goes up, the other side goes down. And I think we have a couple of adults in this room with us. So I really encourage all of us to be doing this, even if we're moms or we're volunteers in another county, to feel free to participate in this, so then you can be sharing it with those that you mentor and provide support to. So now, on the top part, way up on the top, you're going to write the word learning. Remember, I had LLS on that one slide, so here's the first L, learning. Learning. So then on the middle section, you're going to write the word leadership. That's your second L for LLS. Leadership. And then on the bottom, you're going to write the word service. There's your S for LLS. And for right now, that's all we're going to do with that piece of paper. As we're going along, if I say something or you suddenly think about something you've done related to 4-H, related to the horse project, or related to learning, leadership, or service, feel free to put it in the correct section. So, if you were a club officer, that would be leadership, right? If you donated food at Thanksgiving to somebody in need, that would be service. So as we're going along, I wanted you to have a piece of paper handy so that you're able to be putting information right in there. And then I already said it, but now I'll put it on the screen. Adults, you also can fill this in, write down ideas that you can share with youth. And then think outside the box. Don't just think of club officer or just think about picking up garbage along the street. As we're going along, think big, because I bet all of you have done lots of things in those 3 categories. So when you're asking how do you apply for this, one of the biggest things that you do is show how you have done learning, leadership, and service throughout your life. All right, so now and then, what was it like before COVID when we could be at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds and we had a Minnesota State Horse Show? And what happened last year when we didn't get to do that? So I wanted to just show you, this is what we did last year. We still had a Dan Patch application. We still had judges. We still had winners. And what we were able to do in September, when it was actually the weekend we would have been at the State Horse Show, we got together in Meeker County at their fairgrounds. And these are the kids that were able to make it that day. These were the winners. There's 10 winners in the high school level and then 10 in the junior high level, the 6th to 9th grade. So potentially there would have been 20 people in this picture, but of course not everyone could make it on that day, or if you weren't well and healthy and all those things. But these are the ones that were able to drive out to central Minnesota. And we spent a morning together brainstorming, what would we like to see this program become? How would we like to help the horse project? And what does it mean for us to have received this honor? So we had a great couple of hours together, and Winter Roundup was talked a lot about on that day of, Winter Roundup, a lot of these kids in this picture have spent the weekend together at the camps for Winter Roundup in January every year. So they were starting to think outside the box of, what if we reimagined Winter Roundup? What if it has to be online? Who's going to make that happen? How are we going to do that? So it's thanks to some of these kids in this picture that, made this happen today, and that I think we've all had a great time so far learning and hearing different things. So like I said, we did all sorts of things in that 3 hours. We had a photo shoot. We got individual photos taken, group photos, photos with masks, photos without masks. We were in a huge open building and it wasn't too cold. And we did some brainstorming, like what could we do with social media? What could we do with interviews, with live streams, with Dan Patch? Dan Patch at WR is at Winter Roundup. So they did a lot of work together on thinking about what they would like to see our horse project become. And then since we couldn't be part of the grand entry and have a big award ceremony in person where we're all on horses and everybody's carrying flags and everyone has the matching shirts on, what we did instead is we created social media blasts. And again, this was some of the youth winners that created these collages. And we published, it was one collage on Monday, someone else Wednesday, someone else Friday. So it took us like 6 weeks to get through everybody that participated. Each youth had to write their own write-up. So you'll see on the right is Mariama Reeser, that she wrote something about herself to be published, and she picked a picture. And then everybody that wanted to participate had to submit photos. And Paige Newcomb is the one that made those collages and put the photos into a collage that all fit. And then Aliana is on the left. She was our biggest, our top of the cream of the crop this year for the Dan Patch winner for 2020. And I think her quote she put on there is really important. With mentoring comes responsibility. I strive to be a good role model and to be dedicated to my commitment. So when you offer to do something, that you follow through and do it. You don't just decide to skip out, that you actually make it happen. So this is what we did last year. But what about then? What about before COVID? So before COVID, these youth that applied for this Dan Patch Award and that were the top 10 winners or top 10 in each category, they would get a number of rights that came with that award. So what you see in the middle, this is 2019, the winners. Right in the middle is Laura Schouts in the blue. She was the winner in 2019. And then you see all of the people in blue next to her. Those were the Dan Patch finalists. Those are the high schoolers, 10th to 13th grade. In the front, in the maroon, are the youth leaders. And in 2019, there was 6 youth leaders chosen. That was changed in 2020, so there can be 10 winners of 6th to 9th graders in 2020 and going forward. So like Dylan and Nevaeh and anyone that's in that younger age group, there's up to 10 winners now. And then what you see in the bottom picture is when you receive this finalist title, that you're a finalist, you get to have your horse in the center stall at the horse barn during a horse show. So right when you walk in that horse barn, and everybody decorates their stall their own way. So it's different than the counties that decorate often as a county theme. In that center aisle, each person does their own thing. And then at the end stalls, like what you see here, a lot of times the Dan Patch winner will decide what to do with the end stalls. So in 2018, Erin encouraged everyone to submit an 8x10 photo. And then we put their photos on the end stall. So there's different ways that you get recognized throughout the horse barn. And then what's going on in the top picture? That's the grand entry that happens on Saturday night of the horse show. And that's when all of the kids in the blue shirts, the high school finalists, they get to ride their horse and they all get a flag that they carry and there's music. It's like a drill team performance. And also in the past, each county also would have a representative. So that's why you see so many horses in that picture. So there's a lot of different rights that historically have come with this Dan Patch Award. As we're in COVID, those rights, some of those things are changing. So here's what you're waiting for. How do you apply? What does it mean? So I have 2 columns. So if you're a 10th to 13th grader, you really are going to focus on the left. If you're 6th to 9th grade, you focus on the right. There's a green box going across everybody because everybody does this. To apply for this Dan Patch Youth Leadership Award, you have to have been in some sort of horse leadership role. Like you might have attended Winter Roundup. Look, you're all here. Check. Maybe you attended Yellow or Blue, those leadership conferences. This year, I think they also called it Teal. Maybe you did speech and demo, even a team presentation. Yeah, Nevaeh, have you done that one? You also want to participate in judging or hippology or horse pool or some sort of county workshop, or maybe you went to summer camp or on some retreat. So that first requirement is that you do something that shows you're a leader. So for Nevaeh and Carly and those that aren't 6th grade yet, this is your time to be participating in something. Like horse bowl is for 3rd grade and up, right?
Does horse PDC count?
Yes, definitely. There's so many things, but I didn't list them all. And again, I put it in the middle of the slide. Everybody has to do this that applies. Everybody has to write a resume. And we're going to look at what is a resume. Everybody has to create a portfolio. That's a kind of a big, long word. What is that? So we'll look at those things. A cover letter, I don't really talk about today, but you put a cover letter on top of those things. And then there's an application form that you just have your club leader and your horse project leader and your county program coordinator sign. So that application includes a lot of signatures, and it just says, yes, I have participated in something horse leadership. Here's my name, my address. Here's my shirt size in case I win, so I get one of those shirts. So it's just basic information. So here you see the high schoolers, the top 20. So if 28 people apply, the top 20 get to advance to the second part of the competition. If only 19 apply, all 19 get to advance. And then for youth leadership, all you have to do is what's in that green box. Submit a resume and portfolio, and the top 10 scores earn trips to the state horse show. So the younger kids don't have to do anything else.
What do
But
you
what
mean?
about-
So for the horse show,
Mhm.
what does that mean? Like, do we go and like talk or?
Oh, if you earn a trip to the state horse show, anything that you get a blue ribbon at your county fair, you get to compete at the state horse show in that event. So if you got a blue in trail class, you would be able to participate in trail class or in English equitation, whatever it might be, you can then participate in. Plus you get to have your horse in the center stall and you get to talk. That is part of it as well, that if you're hanging out in the center aisle, people, that's the way they walk into that barn. And so they might stop and want to know about you, about your horse. And it's a great way for you to be an advocate about horses. All right, so who are these kids? They're all dressed up. Nobody looks like a horseback rider there. This is your high schoolers that had the top scores in 2019. So again, this was before COVID. We could get together in person. We didn't have to wear masks. Look how close they are. And they are there for the second part of the competition. I think I have that all explained right there. So in this second part, what they have to do is they get interviewed. That's why I asked you, who is Dan Patch? And you might get asked things about learning, leadership, and service. They also have to give a 10-minute talk. So like Nevaeh and Carly and people that aren't quite sixth grade yet, you want to still be practicing for speech and demo. And you might do that at your club meetings, that when you are asked to give a demonstration, you can practice in little bits to get you ready for that 10-minute presentation. I know Lydia Jones, who introduced Amber Lay today, she did a team presentation on how to give vaccines. So there's all different things you can do team presentations or demonstrations on. And then the third part of the competition is a team problem. And so these guys that you see in this picture, I think there was 14 of them that year, they don't all know each other. And they get put in random groups and they get presented with a problem, like maybe one about horse racing. Maybe one racehorse gets sick and what are you going to do at the racetrack? And they have so many minutes to talk to each other, and they don't know each other, remember, come up with a plan, and then they have to present it to the 3 judges. Here's what we would do. And they get scored on how they work as a team, because anything you do in the horse industry or in life typically involves being able to work as a team. So from this group, the top 10 get to go to the state show and earn trips. This was then, before COVID. This is what it looked like last year. Last year, we had to do interviews, presentations, and team problems on the screen. That had never been done before, and it was before everyone was familiar with Zoom, so it was a little stressful, but we had 4, 8, 12, 16, 19 people participate out of our 20 possibilities. One person couldn't make it that day. So 19 came on, and of the 19, then 10 earned a state trip. And then unfortunately, there wasn't a state show. So that was a bummer, but they're able to come this coming year to the state show.
Why is like anything that has names on it like blurted out?
Because we posted this on Instagram and Facebook and we didn't want their names on there. So we just put a little graphic over the top covering up their names. It's just a privacy issue. It's how to be internet safe.
And what about the things that like the signs that they have?
Some of them had signs up because they needed to have their name, they needed to have a name tag when they were presenting so the judge would know, especially in the team problem, who was saying what. How else would you be able to score if you didn't know any of those 4 people that were speaking? So for those of you that are of high school age, if you're applying for this Dan Patch Award, you will want to save the date June 26th because that's when we are doing this event. We don't know if it will be in person or if it will be online, but either way, it's happening on June 26th. So you'll want to mark your calendars now, and that's all on the application form for you, just to remind you. All right, so isn't this a cute picture? How do we take that first step? What's the first thing that we're going to do?
Fill out the application.
Right, so we're gonna start using this piece of paper, and I'm not gonna worry about the application. That's what's your name, what's your address, how old are you, what grade are you in? You can do that by yourself. I'm going to help you with the resume and portfolio piece. So here we are. Take your piece of paper, and I'm gonna just give you a minute to jot down 5 ideas about what have you learned in 4-H about horses? Maybe you learned how to mentor someone, or maybe you learned about helmet safety. And then you're going to jot down 5 ideas about leadership. How have you been a leader? What have you taught someone else? Or if people were misbehaving and being dangerous around a horse, did you step up and give them directions to make it safe? And then service. What are a couple ideas about service? So you can just come up with any ideas you have about learning and about leadership and about service.
Does service have to involve horses?
No, it might involve horses, but maybe you have only one thing that's about horses. Maybe you have 4 or 6 or 8 things about, picking up garbage, or sending cookies overseas to soldiers, or giving food to a family in need at Thanksgiving.
I actually would like to add something to that question. They actually encourage you to have other things besides horses.
Right. We're going to look at the rubrics coming up here and look at what are they looking for. And on every single one, it's going to say, did you include non-4-H, non-horse? So that's why I said, think big outside the box. It doesn't just have to be in a little package. Now, it is a horse award, so we do want something about horses, but it doesn't need to be all about. So thank you, Amber. That's great.
What does service mean again?
Service means something you're doing for someone else. So we often talk about community service or service projects in 4-H. So I know as a state, they've been doing mittens and making mittens and then giving them to people that need mittens, people that are homeless. All right, did everybody get at least a couple things jotted down there? So for those of you that do, put one idea, and we won't do from each category, but just put one idea in the chat so that we can see what everyone is thinking of. And Michaela says, have you won the award? All right, Michaela says, have you won the award? Michaela, I was never in 4-H, but my son won the award in 2018. And then my daughter has applied for it last year and was a youth leadership winner for the 6th to 9th grade. Oh, I like these ideas. Look at these ideas because they might help you fill in your sheet. So Lisa says learning, hippology. Wow, don't we learn a lot in hippology and horse bowl? Leadership, being a club president, service, teaching younger kids about 4-H or becoming a county ambassador. For Ella, I've learned English, Western safety, and about the parts of the horse. Michaela says, for service, I gave a Christmas present to someone I didn't know. Carly, I helped my mom with food. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to think about service in different areas. Sometimes it can be in that family circle and sometimes it's beyond. Jessalyn says, helping walk horses in the arena. What a great service. I know Beth is in there for Claire. Being a state ambassador, helping lead Teal. Stacy says, we gave cookies to our community. Johanna, community service club. So her whole club that's its primary focus. So then you would just pick out some of those things that you've done as a club. Giving candy to soldiers, Dylan, that's a great one. Torius is going to a nursing home and doing bingo. Of course, picking up the ditch. That's one that our club does every spring. We have a snowmobile trail that goes right past the horse riding arena for our club. And so we go out there and pick up all the garbage that people leave on the trails. Hopefully you got some ideas that you can add to your own page. Maybe you heard some of those and you're like, well, I've done that. So I can add that to mine. Because we can work together on this and do some of that brainstorming. How do you get graded? Just like when you're in school, if you submit something for an assignment, you want to know, what do I do to get a good grade? What am I being graded on? So here we have 4 different parts to this circle. So the red part is on presentation. So the way that you write your paper is part of your grade. The way that you submit your resume. So for example, for my talk tomorrow, I created a Google Sheets table. So it's very organized. 1/4, 25% of the grade is on what did you learn? Why are you applying for this award? What have you learned in 4-H, out of 4-H, as a human being living on this earth? And then another 1/4 is on leadership. How are you taking what you're learning and how are you leading with it? Are you saying yes when you're asked to be the club secretary? Are you willing to participate in the Horace County PDC? Do you do more than just show up? And then 1/4, 25% is based on service. Are you able to show that you do more than take? Do you also give? Because just like it was said earlier today, we want that give and take, that balance. So we'll look at it just a little more detailed. In that first part on presentation, they're looking at, is your resume 2 pages or less? So we don't want a 4-page resume. It has to be broken down to 2 pages. Margins, font, spacing. So I know some of you that are really young, this might be a little foreign to you, but it just means, you know, how much space is around your paper? Do you have white space? Or does the eye have to work really hard? So my particular paper I'm holding up doesn't have very much white space because I wanted it all to fit on one paper. So this is only a 1/2-inch margin. Is it visually appealing? Does it make someone want to read it? Is the spelling and grammar appropriate for your grade level? So Carly would be judged differently than Claire because they're at different grade levels. And did you include a cover letter? So for learning, we're looking at learning as a process, not an end result. So we don't want to see all things that are in the past tense of I learned how to ride a horse. I learned how to train a horse. I learned how to, all these things like you're done learning and you're a 6th grader. We want to see that learning is a process and that you're continuing to learn, that some things are past tense, some things are present, and this is maybe your goals of what you want to learn. So we do want some of it to be horse related. This is a horse award. Is it 4-H related? And again, if you're a 6th grader, you might not have national experience yet because there's not many national trips for that age group. So you would maybe have more at the club and county, but the older you get, hopefully the more expansive your levels become, that you've done more and more with 4-H at different levels. And has some of your learning been on a team? So you're not just a solo person doing everything by yourself. And do you include some things about non-4-H? So maybe that's a saddle club. It might still be 4-H or still horse, but maybe it is through a saddle club or through WSCA or Champ Show. Maybe it's about a tack swap that you helped with. Non-4-H learning. And it might even be something that's not about horse. Maybe you went to a leadership event and you learned something there. So leadership, we're looking at, have you played a direct leadership role? And that's really important that you actually step out there and do something. So what you've seen today with Allison and Leah and Lydia and Alexis and Josie, the 5 committee members for this particular weekend, you see them stepping up and speaking, even if they're afraid. You see them troubleshooting and being willing to be flexible and, okay, fine, I'll lead all 150 people. That wasn't the plan. I was supposed to only have 30 people in a breakout room. But you're seeing these youth play this direct leadership role. So we're looking at, did they plan things? Did you present things? Did you implement? Maybe you worked with a clinic. Like our club, we do a horseless horse clinic every spring. Maybe you helped mentor somebody with that. Project meetings, camps, field trips. Maybe you're the hippology coach. Maybe you're the horse bowl captain. Were you elected any certain position or maybe appointed a position at the county PDC or at your club level, or maybe an FFA, maybe at a church group? So you see the bottom bullet says non-4-H, that you can bring in other experiences into this. It doesn't just have to be 4-H. And then service, that green quadrant, how did you use your learning and leadership to serve? So did you apply your learning and leadership to serve the community? It might be 4-H services like hosting a clinic. Maybe you did that for free. Maybe you gave lessons. Maybe you mentored a horseless horse. I know that my kids have been invited to different schools to share about horses. And so public schools and private schools, and they've hauled along saddles and saddle racks and tack and horse feed, and they've done that all for free. So that's 4-H or horse related service. And then do you also do non-4-H service? So maybe you do something at your church or something at your school. So that's all for the resumes. So just to sum it up, what is a resume? It's a 2-page document that points to the 8-page portfolio. Can you imagine writing 8 pages about yourself? That's a major undertaking. The other thing for you high schoolers, that 2-page interview is what the judges receive for the interview so that they can have an idea of what to ask you. So they can relate things and see, do you give answers that are related to what you submitted in the resume? And this is really important because this is for you to be applying for. So you should be writing this yourself. It shouldn't be written by someone else. So they want to see those tie-ins, that you know how to speak about yourself and that you know what's in your own paperwork. Madeline.
So what is all included in the portfolio besides the resume?
Oh, I'll show you. That's coming.
Okay.
We're going to get there. We're going to do resume first because I think it's easier to do 2 pages about yourself. And then you can do 8 pages.
Okay.
And that's my own coaching that I do is, start easier where you don't have to write whole stories. You just have to write phrases and your resume. And we're going to look at a couple resumes right now. But the key thing I want you to see is that bottom line. Your resume shouldn't just look like a laundry list. 3 pairs of socks, 2 pairs of jeans, 1 pair of joggers, 4 sweatshirts. This shouldn't be a laundry list. We want it to have some personality and be personable. So what we have here is a sample resume. This is a terrible resume, by the way, so don't do this one. I thought before we got into Dan Patch resumes, let's look at a really bad one. So just take a moment to look at this one. What do I have to offer? I'm good with people, PPLs. I wear your clothes. I'm a model, so I can sell the clothes. What are your skills? Good, 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 good. What are your hobbies? I'm a tattoo assistant. Volunteer experience, wrapping gifts, and wrapping presents. And then that summary, I hope you think I could work at this job. I think I would do well because I'm a good person with a good soul and I'll work hard and good. So let's analyze this a little bit to kind of get the what not to do out of the way. And then we're going to look at the 2018 winning resume and the 2019 so that you can see how some of these kids that apply year after year after year, how are they growing in their skills of writing? So first of all, this is very unprofessional. This is not how you want your resume to look. So I'm highlighting some of the things in purple that are unprofessional because I gotta go back to school. So do you see how they didn't write the true words? They didn't put an apostrophe with their IMs. So really it's im good with PPLs. Resumes do not want certain words in them. Do not use the word good. Even your portfolio, do not use the word good. Pick other words that are more descriptive. So those, I highlighted all of the times this person used good on one page. You don't want to do that. The third one, they repeated the same phrases over and over. Wrapping, wrapping, wrapping. So that's something else. Now this particular resume is for a job. Up at the top it says, I'm looking for a job. Only for the summer though, because I got to go back to school. And so looking at this, what do I have to offer? Skills, hobbies, and volunteer experience. My question is, who cares about your hobbies? I don't care that you're good at eyebrow tweezing. How is that going to help me hire you for a job? So when you're writing your resume for Dan Patch, that's not for a job, it's for an award. Make sure everything you put in that resume points to the Dan Patch Award. So you don't need extra information in there. And that can be really hard, by the way. If you're thinking there's no way you can fill 2 pages, you might surprise yourself. You might get to 3 pages and then have to start deleting things. And that's really hard when you're attached to all your hard work. You're like, no, but I really did work hard sending cookies overseas. But maybe that's not the most important service project that you did, okay? So was this a little bit helpful to see what not to do? I think it's so great to color code things so that you start to see, well, what's left? What's important here? All right, so we're gonna look at 2 resumes. Well, 2 different kids. Each one of them, I'm showing you 2 resumes for that kid. So altogether, you're going to see 4. Now, I don't want you to write down their resumes because that would be cheating and that would be plagiarism, right? But I do want you to just glance at them and be thinking of your own self and see what they have on theirs that you've maybe done the same thing. And maybe you haven't put it on here yet. So I'm hoping by the end of our time together, this is like all full of scribbles and dots and arrows going here and there and everywhere. And at our house, that's how we do everything. We do all our brainstorming on dry erase boards with colored markers, and we end up with big, huge mind maps for everything we do. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Same person, different years. So look at how it's changed. So you'll see on the left, he has an objective to receive the Dan Patch Youth Leadership Award. On the right, the objective changed a little bit to receive the coveted Dan Patch Award. And then I'm only showing you his first page because that wouldn't be right to give you the whole entire resume. So on the left, this was the first time he submitted to Dan Patch. So for learning, just take a moment to look at the spacing of that. And which one are you more inclined to want to read, the left or the right?
The right.
Why? You're right, Madeline.
The right's more neatly, I guess, composed in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
It does. And so that's why I wanted to give you a side-by-side so that it gives you an idea of, wow, he just changed his font size a little bit. He changed his bold and his not bold. And he got rid of those bullets. They're just kind of dumb to have a bunch of dots on the page. It kind of makes your eye go batty trying to figure out, are they really lined up? Are they crooked? So they're not really necessary. So to play with your format, remember that was 25% of the grade is how do you present your information? So you can go online and find millions of templates for resume, and you can just plug it in to different templates and see which one looks the most like you. The other thing you might notice, well, first I'll ask you, do you notice anything else different between the left and the right?
The left seems more cluttered,
Mm-hmm.
and the right has more space where your eyes can have a break.
Right, so visually, he got a higher grade on the right than on the left. And then the dates. Do you see that on the left, there's no dates? And guess what the judges told him that first year? Where's your dates? Every resume you ever write in your life should have dates. It should say, I worked for the University of Wisconsin River Falls from 2008 to 2021. From 1996 to 2006, I owned and operated a Montessori school. So you want to have those dates so that a person can get an idea of, wow, that learning, he's been doing things since 2014. And every single one says to the present, I'm still learning about clinics. I'm still learning at the Horse Expo. I'm still learning at Share the Fun and Arts In. So in that learning section, he never said, I'm done. I know everything there is about, breakaway roping and Western heritage and goat tying. He never said, we're done. So those are some of the things I want you to see. Now on the left, this is a 6th to 9th grade application. On the right is a 10th to 13th grade application. But, I would highly recommend everybody put dates on their resume. And that was something the judges suggested. So that was how he changed his resume from one year to the next. So that's why I'm telling you, you can apply year after year and you will always change it. You'll add in, my daughter will be able to add in, wow, I was on the committee for Winter Roundup. I introduced such and such. I led these games. And that's important. So this is one person. This happens to be Aaron, who you're going to meet in the next session. He's now a farrier. And then this is someone else. Again, same person, different years. They sent these to me and told me I could use them. So here I thought I'd show you service because we didn't see service on Aaron's, right? So let's look at what are some ideas for service. And now again, look at the difference of how she changed between the first one that she sent me and the last one. So in both of them, she has years, right? You can see the years kind of buried in there. What's different between the top and the bottom? What did she add? Let's look at the one under 4-H. Deliver Valentine's Day cards to nursing home residents, 2013 to 2016. Now go down underneath. Deliver Valentine's Day cards to nursing home residents, 2013 to 2016. Important to spend time with older generation. Or summer day helper. And then at the bottom, it still says summer day helper, but now it says role model for kids, provide a safe learning environment. So I want you to see the top one is what's considered just a generic resume. The bottom one is considered an annotated resume. So when you annotate something, you're giving a little more information. Like if you have to do a science paper and you have to submit the bibliography of what did you read about online, you might just give the websites, but then you might get into 12th grade and they say, oh, now you need to annotate and tell us, why did you choose that website? What did you like about that website? So that's what this is for. I just want you to get ideas of when you put that little bit of annotating behind it. Do you think that's going to help the judges to understand who you are? Yeah. So it's super important. You can look through the whole entire list and see how she annotated almost every single item. Even down at the bottom, church meals. I set up and clean up, prepare food, serve food. Pick up garbage in the road ditches. So did everyone get a couple ideas you could add to your own piece of paper? And it might even be an idea, not necessarily an actual activity. Maybe you just like the idea of dates. All right, so Madeline, you were asking about portfolio. So let's look at those and see what we think and see what is a portfolio. So this should all look familiar. It's the same 4 circles, it's the same words. So your portfolio is judged on that same basic set of how do you present your information, how do you tell about yourself through learning, leadership, and service. There's your LLS that I put on one of those very first slides. This whole award is based on LLS, learning, leadership, and service. So the presentation, your portfolio can be 8 pages long. That's really long. And it should clearly and eloquently expand the resume. So if your resume says, I served food at the fair, in your portfolio, you might tell a paragraph long story about serving food at the fair. Like, do you have a pie booth? Do you have a lunch stand? What do you serve and what do you learn when you serve? So we're looking at, do you relate things back to the resume? So if people ask me to look at their work, I print out the 2 things side by side and everything in that portfolio, I look at the resume and make sure it's there. You shouldn't be telling a story in your portfolio that isn't already being pointed to from the resume. Is it organized? Is it 8 pages? Do you have paragraphs? And what I mean by paragraph development is go talk to your English teacher. You know, did you create a sandwich? Do you have a top bun and a bottom bun? And then does that bottom bun tell you what's coming next in the next sandwich? And does it continue going? Or is it just a bunch of disjointed comments? So you want to have that paragraph development. Your spelling and grammar according to your age group. Your format, do you have headings and subheadings? We're going to look at a couple and you'll see what that means. I don't want to pick up an 8-page paper that is 8 pages single spaced and doesn't tell my eyes where to stop. So again, do you have margins, font? Is it visually appealing? There's also some guidelines at the bottom of the application that say things like you have to have your name on each page so that if your judge, if their dog jumps up and knocks down all 27 applications and portfolios and resumes and they have to reassemble those, you have to have your name on each page as a footer. And then you get to put illustrations in here. You would never put a picture in the resume, but you get to put pictures in here. You don't want to have too many pictures. You don't want to have too few pictures. So you have to look at it with your eyes and just see, where do you think a picture goes here? If I'm telling a story about county fair and working with the public and talking to the public, do I have a picture related to that? Then the portfolio, again, learning is a process, not an end result. That's all similar. Do you share specific examples from your resume? Do you start telling stories? Like a lot of us talk about, I've been attending horse clinics twice a week for 3 years. Well, what did you learn at a horse clinic? You know, share one specific example. Make sure your examples aren't all talking about state level or all talking about club level, but try to include some variety. And don't assume your judges are 4-H'ers. So you have to spell it out enough that it could be somebody that doesn't know much about 4-H. So don't talk in 4-H lingo. In your learning, do you talk anything about teams? Like maybe you're on drill team and what did you learn as a drill team member? Or maybe you're doing team roping in Western Heritage. Well, what's that like to be the header or the healer? You know, that there's all different ways to talk about participating on a team. And include non-4-H. It doesn't all have to be 4-H. So you might have a really cool story of something you learned at a barrel racing clinic. Leadership is very similar, it plays a direct leadership role. So you want to talk about, you know, not just do a no laundry list. So you don't want to say, I was club president when I was a 6th grader, and then I was club secretary as a 7th grader, and as an 8th grader, I was the rec leader, and then 9th grade, I was the parliamentarian. That's super boring. That doesn't tell me anything about what you learned. So include a story about planning or organizing. Maybe you planned a weekend at your local county campground like we do here in Anoka County, and maybe some parents were rude and didn't do what they had signed up to do, and so you aren't old enough to drive and it screwed up your activity. Well, how did you survive? How did you flex? How did you learn from that and maybe discover you have to send adults reminders that they're human? Did you ever get to repeat your leadership role? Maybe you got elected to be president twice. Well, that shows you did something right, most likely, that they want you back. So you want to share that, want to brag about yourself. If you are a coach or a captain, what does that mean? Is it just a word and nobody lets you do anything? Or do you actually plan the activities? Do you do the research? If we're talking digestive system for horse bowl this week, did you go get a bunch of yarn and cut out the different lengths of the large intestine, small intestine, cecum, stomach, esophagus? Or do you just show up and call yourself a coach? So all those different things, share a story. What are your responsibilities? And it's okay to share, a failure is not a negative. Failure is an opportunity to learn. So you could share something that didn't go well. You could share what you learned from it. You could share a reflection of, yeah, I wouldn't do that again. If you go to an elementary school and you put out a bunch of sweet feed for the kids to sort out the oats from the pellets from the this and that, and they made a mess. I think that's a story in one of my kids' portfolios that they carried a hay bale in, and the janitor was not impressed with us. So what was their learning? Next time I won't bring a hay bale. And it's okay to share that. I learned that hay and public schools don't go well together. And then you can do non-4-H things. And finally, the service. Share specific examples. Include horse-related service, not just non-horse, but try to balance that you have some horse, some non-horse. Those horse service roles, that might be if you work with a little 5-year-old, or I think Aaron tells a story of when he would finish riding, he would let the horseless horse person get on the horse and he would lead them up the driveway. So the person got maybe 3 minutes. But that meant everything. That 3 minutes was gold to that little 5-year-old. So be thinking about, what do I do already that I'm providing a service? You've maybe never thought of it in terms of a service before. And then non-4-H as well. So now, hopefully you've got some things on here. Take one thing that you have up here in learning and just draw a little line off from it. And what story could you talk about that one thing? So maybe about learning something at a clinic. Well, what did you learn? Did you get bucked off because you didn't teach your horse how to change leads properly and the horse got confused? Maybe you were doing training project and lunging and something, and you learned something about how to look at your horse or how to space yourself from your horse. And then do the same for leadership. What's one thing you wrote down? And then write yourself a little story title next to it. And then go in the chat and give us just a little title, and we'll see if we can figure out what it is. All right, so put something in the chat. Give a little title of one of your stories, of something that you did that you could write a story about in your portfolio. Taking an advanced writing class. Oh, all sorts of things you learn in that, I bet. What else? Photography challenges, and be able to talk about that in terms of Dan Patch, learning hippology, horse camp. See how you can give yourselves little titles. Those might come up later then as your subheadings on your 8 pages. So what you see here is, how do you start? If someone tells you to write 8 pages about yourself, I would just prefer to go lay on the couch and pull a blanket over my head. Like, that just sounds overwhelming to write about myself, right? So here's an example of somebody's first brainstorm session that they sat down and just started writing. So you don't even have to read it. I just want you to look at it. Do you see how it's all one big, long, huge, humongous paragraph? That's not what you're going to want to give a judge to read. But that's that first brainstorming. It's called like a brain dump. You just have to start writing or typing. So then we'll take that one away and look what it transformed into. So now do you see the individual paragraphs? One picture on one page, another picture on another page. Oh, the pictures are at an angle. You might have to learn some graphic design in your different word programs, right? And figure out how do you tilt a picture. Do you want to tilt your pictures? Maybe you don't. Maybe you want them straight. Do you want shadows behind your pictures? Do you want non-shadows? So all these things to think about, and then look at the subheadings. So the heading, I think, was learning here, and then subheading horse related. So now the reader knows, oh, I'm going to read something that's not directly about a horse, but it's sort of related to a horse. Okay. So I just wanted to give you that quick look at beginning to end. So if you start out more like this, that's how you should start. Just do some brain dumps. I know somebody that didn't want to get started, and then they went and started typing, and when they sent it to me, it was 15 pages long. It only needs to be 8. So that person that had just worked so hard now needed to go through and delete half of her words. But that was her brain dump. So do what you have to do to get something out there, because then you get to cut it apart and you get to delete and make things smooth. All right, so we click through there, we go to there, down at the bottom, I have the blue box over the person's name, but that would be their name and then the page number. So again, if the judge's dog jumped up on the counter and messed everybody's stuff up, it not just had the name, but also the page, so the person can get it back in order. Things to, hopefully you were looking at was the fonts, the margins, the white space. Is it clear? Is it active? Are there extra words? Like, we don't want a lot of goods. How's the sandwich? And we need to go fast. So if you look here, I think I highlighted all of them. Look at all these repeat phrases. I have, I have, I have. This was in that very first brain dump. And so there's no variety in the sentence structure. So Madeline, having taken an advanced writing class, you would totally chop this person up, right? And you would be like, problem, 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 problem. There's also really poor grammar in here and spelling problems. So all sorts of issues. Things aren't capitalized when they should be, some are and they shouldn't be. And then here's where it went from there. And there's really colorful sentence starters. I think they're all just going to highlight themselves. There we go. So we have different sentence openers. We have clauses, all sorts of opening clauses, just plain old phrases, the older man, before, after, when, most, later. See the transition? So he's telling a story here of being at the fair and somebody coming up and watching him warm up at like 7 in the morning. And then the guy came back and sat in the stands and gave him a thumbs up when he was competing later on in the day. And so this is a kind of a long story, but this was in Aaron's service category. That I provided a service by listening to an older gentleman and letting him connect to my horse. That was a service. Okay. We don't really have time for this activity, so you can do this on your own. Okay, so now for all your activities, you always want to ask what did I learn? How will I use that knowledge and what impact did it have on me? And relate it back to learning, leadership, and service. And then what next? This is due on April 8th. So you have about 5 weeks to work on this. So you will want to start working and then you'll want to look at it every week. Don't just do it one weekend and send it in, but let it sit and rest. Go sleep on it for a couple days. Go back and work on it some more. Really encourage you to send it to someone else. Send it to your favorite English teacher. Have your parent read it, but they're really attached to you. So, have someone else read it too. Give those people a deadline so they don't put it at the bottom of their to-do list. Tell them I need it back in 1 week. And then afterwards, send them a thank you card. Thanks for giving me feedback. Look at everything they're suggesting. You don't have to take it all. You can say, no, I disagree with you. You don't have to tell them you disagree with them. Just thank them anyway. But you might see some good ideas. And remember, your resume and portfolio, but you also have to fill out the application. You need to gather all the signatures, so don't work on this on Saturday night when no county officers are working. You want a photo and a cover letter. And you put the whole thing into a report cover, which I meant to bring with and I forgot. But just a clear report cover. And then we talked about this already. Why bother? What are the rights and what are the responsibilities? You get a photo shoot, the top 10 scores out of everybody, 6th to 13th grade. Top 10 scores get money to go to the American Youth Horse Conference, AYHC, which is next weekend virtually. You get a shirt, a button-down shirt. You get a stall, all sorts of things. And your responsibility is to represent the horse project. You're like the horse ambassadors. Keep the center aisle clean, just like in your county you keep your aisles clean. And you get to decorate. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. You can't really do it all in one sitting. Have some horse racing here because I knew we were having a racing speaker. To pace yourself out. Don't wait until March 30th to start working on this when it's due April 8th. But pace yourself out, work on it a little bit this week, next week, and keep going.